Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Abington Heights School Board meeting for Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. Would everyone please rise and pledge the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. She fell down. All right. May we please have a roll call?
Mr. Abdallah.
Here.
Mr. Azar.
Here.
Mrs. Henderson. Mrs.
Here.
Hillibrand.
Here. Mike's
Mrs.
not working.
Karam.
Here.
Mrs. Kehoe. Mr. Moran.
Here.
Mr. Robeson.
Here.
And Mr. Acker.
Here.
8 present.
Okay, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Can I please have a vote?
Mr. Abdallah.
Yes.
Mr. Azar.
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson.
Yes.
Mrs. Hillibrand.
Yes.
Mrs. Karam.
Yes.
Mr. Moran.
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
And Mr. Acker.
Yes. Before we move on, we're going to move the public comment section of the meeting to before the superintendent's report. I think the superintendent's report is going to be a little involved.
Yep.
So at this time, we would be having public comment. Normally, we have cards and ask people to fill them out, but we don't have them tonight, so I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. Please come up. When you come up, state your name, and keep your comments to about 30 minutes. Your name and where you live. One at a time, please. 30 minutes? Oh, no.
30 minutes, sounds
Whoa,
great.
no.
Perfect.
3
Anybody
minutes,
who knows
please.
me
You're being
knows
very
that I'm
gracious.
a quick
Mr.
talker.
Abdallah, just about had a heart attack. So 3 minutes,
Just
please.
kidding. Is this
Thank
thing
you very
on?
much.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Good evening. My name is Tamsin Reese. My cohort is supposed to be with me, Susan Duckworth, but unfortunately her mother is ill, so she is not with me tonight. But the two of us are here representing the Abington Heights Marching Comets. Tonight actually marks, well, maybe a month ago, marks the conclusion of our 2-year co-presidency, Susan and I, with the Abington Marching Comets. And we wanted to thank the school board and actually on our administrators in the back, because we've had so much support from our principals and vice principals and the community, which has allowed our students to grow not only as musicians but leaders at Abington Heights. So we also wanted to formally introduce our new president. So if you see their faces around, Romaine Astolfi and Carrie O'Reilly are the new presidents for this organization. And they bring with them strong leadership, dedication, and a deep commitment to our students, and we are confident the program will thrive under their guidance. Over the past 2 years, with support of the district, administrators, staff, parents, and community partners, the Band Boosters have been proud to continue and expand our opportunities for the students. These include participation in community events such as the Santa Parade, which is a new one for this year. We were super excited. I hope you saw them on TV with their Santa hats. The Ice Festival, which you do every February. The Memorial Day events. We were part of a day of service with a car wash from the Church of St. Gregory and Our Lady of the Snows. We did our inaugural and highly successful bingo fundraiser, and thank you to some of you who were there and calling numbers. We appreciate it. Save the date, it's March 22nd, so we'll be hitting you back up. And we also had jazz performances at the Central Park Cafe and Keystone College. We also worked to return to taking our show on the road, if you will. This past spring, the students participated in Music in the Parks at Dorney Park. They competed against 8 school districts from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York. The Marching Comets earned first place in our division, received the highest possible rating of superior, and were awarded best overall band out of all of the groups in attendance. In addition, the Marching Comets participated in cavalcade performances where they were formally evaluated and earned top honors, further demonstrating the quality, discipline, and musical excellence of this program. The boosters also fund yearly Miss Comet and our drum majors to attend professional leadership training and clinics at Westchester University. And the students also participate, not all of them, but they participated in Penn State's Blue and White Day and the Blue Band Summer Camps. We're especially proud at this time that we're able to breathe new life into the Dance Front program. We also, in the back here, have one of she's actually our volunteer coach, but Jen, can you raise your hand? There's Jen. She was instrumental the last 2 years. This program went from 4 girls to 24 girls, which we were really excited about. There's a lot more glitter on that field now. So through these experiences, students have consistently demonstrated pride, professionalism, and excellence while representing Abington Heights throughout the community and beyond. As we conclude our remarks here for tonight, and we let these two new folks move on, there is another project that Susan and I have been working on with the band over the last 2 years, and that addresses our uniforms. So it has to do with the long-term sustainability of the uniforms and the Dance Front, both programs. The evaluation process for replacing the marching band and Dance Front uniforms began 2 years ago. Our current uniforms are between 23 and 26 years old and have been carefully maintained through professional dry cleaning, which happens annually. So these kids don't get one uniform and wear it for 5 or 6 years. They have to turn it in every year, and we have to resize them every year. It's a process, but it's fun. You love it. So the repairs and alterations. While that stewardship has served the program well, continued repairs are no longer a sustainable solution. This fall, a committee of band boosters worked in coordination with band leadership to review options from nationally recognized uniform companies with careful attention to durability, fit, student comfort, and maintaining the tradition and identity of Abington Heights. Planning also accounts for our current enrollment of approximately 100 students, including middle school members, to ensure consistency and equity across the years. And band boosters are prepared to contribute approximately 10 to 12% through our ongoing fundraising efforts in order to contribute to this effort. Because uniforms require approximately 7 to 8 months to manufacture, I'm going to let you do the math on that for me. It's January, the fall. Okay, right? 7 to 8 months. Moving forward in the near term would allow them to be ready for the upcoming season. So we are looking to move on this rather quickly. We respectfully place this matter in the hands of the administration for further review and guidance on next steps, and we thank the board for your continued support of our students and the program. Thank you very much for your time. We will be here after the meeting. We have brought samples of some of the material that we have. Also, we have where is it? Yeah, that's a demo. So we've worked on this with some folks to kind of narrow down what we think it should look like. It's actually very similar to the one we have, but obviously updated. So if you have any questions, if you'd like to look at these later, we will be here after the meeting, and thank you so much for your help.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your support of the students. Okay, is there anyone else for public comment? If that's the case, let's move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Schaefer?
At this time, we are going to have our principals come up one by one, and yearly, at the midpoint, usually January, February-ish, we update the board and community on our goals and our progress towards them. And today is no exception tonight. So we're going to have each of the principals come up. They'll spend approximately 3-4 minutes, and they'll tell us what they've learned from the data that they have in front of them. They will talk to us about their plans this year and some of the metrics they look at along the way to ensure that we are tracking towards these outcomes. You know, at the same time, you may hear about what some of the challenges are and how we work through those. But we think that this is an effective way to communicate our progress towards our goals, as well as some transparency about where we feel some of the challenges lie. All right. We'll start with Clark Summit Elementary. Mr. Miliani.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here this evening. As you could see, our slide for our English Language Arts School for this year, it's increased proficiency in ELA in grades 3 and 4 on the PSSA. Proficient advanced, that would be. And then also the benchmark for our Acadians K2. increased to 80%, which means at or above grade level for students from the beginning of the school year measures. The math slide, and we'll get to the math slide in a second, is very similar. It's the same exact layout. Some of the actions that we've taken are, again, working with our small group instruction, having data meetings to design specific small groups to work with students, to give them what they need, that instructional, working with instructional strategies and practice for students with our teachers and our intervention team. Progress monitoring is something, again, that we've added, and we have a schedule of progress monitoring that takes place throughout the school year, but definitely in between our benchmarking. Targeted instruction and enrichment, again, data-centered meetings and research-based instruction. So at the midpoint, after analysis of where we're at with Acadians and our CDT data, we are demonstrating measurable academic progress in both subjects. We've reviewed, like I said, Acadians benchmarking, our CDTs, the PSSA results from the previous years to see how we did and performed in the students, and then compare our cohort for fourth grade from their third grade scores last year. We also look at our classroom-based assessments, and all these indicate that our targeted instructional practices and the consistent implementation of our MTSS process are positively impacting student learning. Through these data-centered instructional practices and our MTSS structures that we continually revise, and we work together as an elementary team here to ensure that we're consistent and on the same page, as well as strengthening the research-based strategies for our teachers to implement with students has us on a trajectory where we're anticipating meeting our goals by end of school year. If you can switch, there's the mathematics slide. It's up already. No, that's okay. That's all right. Again, these are our mid-year percentages. If you have any other questions for me, I'd be happy to answer. We do have data meetings that are happening now and into next week, analyzing this mid-year data with our teachers and to readdress groupings that we have amongst grade levels and reallocate resources that we have, because there's some really innovative things that are happening in all the elementary buildings with our teachers and our specialists. I could speak to kindergarten. We're doing a push-in MTSS support where students during their small group time have 3 teachers in the room. So there's the classroom teacher, the kindergarten teacher, a reading specialist, and a math specialist in the room working with students, switching through groups. So we have 3 highly qualified individuals working with students, our youngest students during our kindergarten program. And then we also have speech and occupational therapy support during that time, going in and making sure our speech and language therapists have eyes on all students. So this is a great way early on to be proactive and ensure that kids have what they need moving forward. Again, we're doing a couple other things with push-in supports in third grade at CSE, second grade as well, that we started last year, that we demonstrated definitely was very successful for our students with foundations. And, being able to decode words and encode. So, like I said, the mid-year data that we have, we're on track and showing progress in meeting our end-of-the-year goals for this school year. Did I qualify under time? I didn't hear the bell for the 3 minutes. Yeah.
Just obvious comment, I just want to make sure I'm right. BOY,
Beginning of school year, yes. MOY, middle of school year, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I just condensed it into a short slide.
I just wanted to make sure that.
Yes. EOY would be end of school year too.
Okay.
Any questions for Clark Summit Elementary?
Real quick, since you're the first
Sure.
elementary person, so
Sure.
when you answer this question, nobody else will have to do this.
Oh,
right?
boy.
And I'm only asking you because you're leaving, so you're gonna have the hardest job up here today.
All right. All right.
Nah. So we've got up here the Acadience benchmark, and sometimes it's acronym soup. So I wanted you to kind of distill this to the least common denominator that way, and I'll give you all the knowledge I have relative to this, but it wasn't Acadience, but for everybody here, it's gone through it. You'll see something here where it says like Acadience, but I remember this as a parent. So, when my children were kindergartners, one of the first things they would do is like, do you know your letters? Right? And we have some national statistics where we'd say, okay, if you took this in the fall of your kindergarten year and you could name 12 uppercase and 12 lowercase, then you were right where you needed to be. So sometimes when we hear this and it seems like alphabet soup, you know it in a different way. Is there anything that you can kind of add to this Acadience? Like, what are some of the things that we do with the kids, and then how do we determine who goes where?
Sure, and it varies amongst our grade levels. Like, there's like different skills that they're looking at, and the easiest way to describe it would be like their temperature checks along the way, which is why we do it. And we look at the curriculum that we have in place along with the standards to figure out how to program for that. So, for example, like first sound fluency is one, where letter identification, and some of these metrics change in grade levels and then throughout the year when they add them in. In the math portion of it, there is computation, which is also part of it as well. Now, it doesn't tell the whole story, but it gives us a picture of where that support may need, and we might have to dig deeper to do something else to be more diagnostic, like the classroom diagnostic, the CDTs, which is diagnostic as opposed to a benchmark, which really digs down, and I can pull up in grade 3 and grade 4 exactly the reporting categories and the standards, where they're performing and how they're performing, and then we can program for that to group students based on those skills and areas of need that they may have. And again, they're flexible as well. So just because a student may need help, let's say geometry, identifying two-dimensional shapes, okay? Doesn't mean that they may need that for the entire school year, right? So these groups are designed, and our small group times that we built into our master schedule, and now that we're the 6-day schedule, we built this in a couple years ago as an elementary team, to recognizing the need to support students in both ELA and math, not one or the other, because sometimes students need support in both. And again, enrichment as well, right? Like, so we're supporting all students, not just certain students, but all of the students that we have at CSE, at Waverly, at Newton Ransom, at South Abington, at the intermediate school, at the high school. We're supporting all students. So we use this data internally. We also share it with parents as well during parent-teacher conferences, which were in October this year. Perfect timing, right after our data, the beginning of the year benchmark. We had these reports to share with parents and explain. So when these middle of the year reports come home next week for the elementary level, and if they have any questions, they can email and reach out, or they can bring it to the parent-teacher conferences in February. I wouldn't wait that long, but they could reach out. They could reach out sooner, so they have a basis to see where their child is going and where they may need additional support. And our families and our community highly engaged, and they do whatever it takes to make sure that their students are successful with support even outside of school as well. So I hope that answers for the community and for the board, sheds a little bit of light on kind of what goes on. I don't want to say behind the scenes, but like you said, all these acronyms get thrown out, and Acadience and CDTs, and what does that mean? It's temperature checks. Do we make sure that what we're doing is working? Same thing with the progress monitoring that we've implemented. So we're progress monitoring students as well to make sure that the instruction and the practice that they're getting is working. And that helps us to course correct or refocus, throughout the school year. Perfect. Oh, go ahead.
2 questions. When you look at the numbers, and obviously this is just a subset, has there been anything that you look at and as a principal and a teacher you say, this is more concerning than I would have expected. Is there something that says to you, here's an area that you would have to look at?
So here's what I could say, and even collectively. So it depends on the students and the grade level and the cohort that's in front of you, right? Like, because that's how I like to look at kids, as how they track through from grade to grade to grade and compare them to how they did the previous year. One need that we saw was more practice with that text-dependent analysis in the writing process. Not that it isn't already in our curriculum and in the supplemental resource with wisdom that we use. Sometimes it's just like a different format that they need to see. So using our standards aligned system and being able to pull prompts from like item scoring samplers and things like that. So kids can get that, language may be different than what they're exposed to at times. I wouldn't say anything sticks out. It depends from year to year and like students that are coming in, which is why it's so important to have these temperature checks, as well as the meetings that we have with our faculty and staff to kind of check in to see how they're doing, not just on Acadians, not just on CDTs, but like with day-to-day and our curriculum-based assessments. So I think collectively, with support of central office, and all of our admin team that we have, we do a great job of communicating with each other. And sometimes needs at CSE might be a little bit different than needs in other elementary buildings or other grade levels.
That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yep, you're welcome.
Mario, very best of luck to you.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
We're sorry you're leaving, and good luck and much success.
I appreciate that. It's been a pleasure working here and working with everyone here alongside everyone. Nothing but gratitude. It's been a very impactful and meaningful learning experience for me in my almost 20, I think it's 20 years now. I don't try to keep track, but I appreciate your insight, keeping the focus on students, making the hard decisions, ensuring that kids, not just now, but in the future will have that excellence, that standard of excellence. So much appreciated. I know it's not easy at times, but I appreciate all the support that you've given and showed to me and welcomed me here. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse Mario, by the way.
I know, yeah,
His
yeah.
daughter has a game, so he's allowed to leave. Mario, you're allowed to leave, so you're not
yeah,
late
you're
for the
done.
game.
my daughter did that too.
Tom's up.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thanks again for your commitment to the district and all that we've been doing. And I don't want to be redundant, because as an elementary, I think we're doing a lot of similar things. But for me, in my time here, I saw a shift where decisions are being made with data rather than feel. And I think if you look at organizations, businesses, sporting teams, anything anymore, it's like you got to dig into the data. And I'll be honest, you could go down a rabbit hole, but it's a required rabbit hole that needs to take place. So Newton Ransom English Language Arts, as you can see the data used, same with elementary. Our benchmarking data, which is that Acadians. And to kind of maybe piggyback off what Mario said, that's foundational skills. So think about like these foundational skills of what a kindergarten student should be doing, first grade student, second, third, fourth. And it's really focused on reading. Kindergarten, number recognition, letter recognition, and then goes all the way up into fourth grade. Like if you said a portrait of a reader in fourth grade, it's really getting down to that comprehending piece, analyzing text, being able to identify main idea, supporting details, and into that piece of writing, taking what you're taking and then putting it into text. If you look at the data, last year, the PSSAs, third and fourth grade, that's where we ended up. Mr. Acker asked about surprises. When I looked at that, there were some surprises. CDTs, mid-year where we're at now, I should note that in CDTs, think about foundational skills. Now you have to apply them. So taking them into higher order thinking skills, taking your skills and strategies and putting them into use. And then to our Acadians, K through 4, where we are middle of the year. So yes, some surprises. actions taken, very similar to what Mario said. I'll say this, that as we analyze the data and we meet monthly, we're changing some instruction and some support. So what I mean by that is we're starting to see that even some students at the beginning of the year that might have been stronger in one of those skills, if we see a decrease or them diminish with that skill, then we have to come in and target and add additional support or instruction. And we're doing that in a couple different ways with pushing in with our specialists, but also then going and working with our specialists in targeting. And when it comes to the Acadians, the foundational skills, there is a lot of drill practice and approaches that sometimes need to change, especially with our students today. They're coming in where they're getting a lot of instant gratification, and just a change of delivery could have some impacts on that. For that PSSA, one number stuck out to me, and when we dove deeper into the PSSAs, if you look at a portion of that exam, there's an explicit writing piece. And when we looked at it, our scores, we weren't proud of where we should be. And this year we are doing explicit writing instruction that is connected with wit and wisdom, but even going deeper. And we're giving students basically, anytime they're presented with a task, they should be writing. And I think we are seeing results because we've done baselines on that in mid-year, and our baseline showed a lot of students, they could write, they could put things down on paper, but are they actually answering the prompt, supporting with evidence, elaborating and concluding? We saw that that was an area that needed to be focused on, and that is something that we're doing right now. So for ELA, for mathematics, I kind of look at them both as a grow and a glow. I think with reading and ELA, it's the grow. I think mathematics, there's a lot of glow there, as you could see with our last year, end of year state assessment PSSAs. There's some numbers I think that students, teachers can be proud of. Our CDT data mid-year as well. And you can see it's very similar. There's some correlation there. Acadians data, you could see that certain grades might need some more defined targeted areas of support, and that's exactly what we're doing with some of those actions being taken. Meeting with teachers, having our specialists come in and model. I think one of the big indicators of success for mathematics is just how we're approaching it with formative assessment that the district has brought in with OGAP. And you might ask what OGAP, there's one of those alphabet soups acronyms. It's basically showcasing that what students put down as an answer, it could be right and they could get there many different ways. And if we identify how they get there, we could understand the strategy and skill that they're using and see where it falls on a progression line and see if that's the most effective strategy. And if it's not, how do we get them to that most effective strategy? So data for me has become really something I'm passionate about, and I think we're starting to spread that in our schools as well. Not just making decisions off of feelings and things that we think, not going up the inference ladder and just looking at the data in front of us. What questions do you have?
Acadians and CDT, I feel like these are relatively new. Like, we switched to them. I'm blanking on.
So you can speak a little bit to the lineage of Acadians. What I can tell you is CDT has been in Pennsylvania for a long time. However, it is the CDT diagnostic is created by the same company that develops the state assessments, the PSSA, and the Keystone exams. It is also free to all Pennsylvania schools. The nomenclature that we use in Pennsylvania is different than other states, so it's very difficult to find diagnostics that use the same language. So when we speak with teachers, we use this terminology, And if you go out and you try to find an assessment that for teachers to use, they use different words, phrases, things like, so you don't have that. Here, we do have it. Because, in part, it's free, and it is specifically aligned to the Pennsylvania standards and eligible content, we have a lot of students in Pennsylvania using it. As a result of the usage, there's a lot of power in the data, which means, and this is what we're always looking for, there is a very strong and significant correlation between the CDT and the PSSA. So that's always what we are looking for. And so when we got assessment results, the Department of Education also told us that students that took the CDT, schools that use the CDT, saw their scores go up or outperform schools that did not use it by 6 to 10% in that area. So it fits a lot of categories, which brings me to Acadians, because this is something that we had been trying to find in early elementary for some time.
It was Ames Web before.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you
You've probably seen this presented as Ames Web.
Yeah,
Data.
I have a point to make.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I wanted you
Yeah,
to, no,
yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted you to talk about it because I know from the feedback as a parent, these benchmark assessments are challenging for the students. They take them very seriously, and some of the commentary, and I'm a mom who doesn't always ask them, so when they tell me about it, it's sort of like, okay, I have to pay attention. Some of the feedback was that it was challenging, and the description of the passage and the writing response that my son had to do, you know, it surprised me because it was, I felt like, at a level that I would hope that he'd be at, you know, at a level that is excelling, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, in this, in last year in Pennsylvania, there was a mandate that all assessments would be taken online, which was very different from all the way back to the 90s. And so when students take the CDT, they take that online. That's a real repetition. And that is very meaningful. If you've ever had any, like I had my kids take some SAT prep classes, and they learned a lot of the transactional nature of it. And now I'm starting to see more and more of that in the workforce. In fact, some employers will have you take online assessments. So imagine our kids now that have gotten to the high school and they've had a lifetime of testing with paper and pencil, and then you're putting them in front of the computer. It can be really off-putting. So this also has the, unintended impact of giving them some real-life experience with this that they'll have to do in the spring.
And I think we've learned some things too, right? That it's still important that kids have a piece of paper and a pencil, because sometimes their keyboarding gets in the way, and it's not really a mistake in the math or the writing, it's a mistake in the, oh, I put 3 periods and I didn't know how to get rid of 2 of them. So it's just good practice for all of that piece. Greg?
The only question I had was, sorry. So the only question I had was, the PSSA data was from the end of last year, right?
Yeah.
So is the 4th grade cohort represented the PSA data
Correct.
different than the 4th grade cohort
Correct.
represented?
So if you
Okay.
look at PSSA data, 3rd grade up there, and then below, that's actually our 4th grade there. But if you look at it in just grade level, they're pretty similar. And the CDT kind of adjusts with the student's skill level a little bit. But, 78% right there, if I was to look at the cohort prior to that, I'd like to see if there's a trend in that. Yeah. Any other questions?
Now everybody's
Thank you.
You're gonna close the windows and in 10 minutes you're gonna be roasting.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having us tonight. Now, I'm the third elementary principal to present, so I will not go into great detail. I will just give you the overview because we do a lot of very similar things in each of the 4 buildings. So essentially, my goals are always to increase PSSA achievement for students in 3rd and 4th grade, and then to also have our students K through 2nd to be core, which means 80% of the students would be at or above benchmark when we're doing our Acadians testing. What I can tell you is our data this year is trending in a great direction. There is true alignment, as Dr. Schaefer mentioned, with PSSA performance and students' performance on the CDTs. And what we do at South Abington, we look at historical data, but then we also look at cohort data and track that as well. So when we get our raw PSSA data file, I then put in that data file next to their PSSA performance, how they performed on the CDT, and then how they performed at the end of the year on their Acadians benchmark to see if there's an alignment. We found an alignment. And then what we decided we needed to do this year was be very creative with our approach to instruction, particularly for students in 1st grade. I think it's because they're transitioning from half-day kindergarten that sometimes, as a parent put it a couple of years ago, they're immediately on the highway, there's no on-ramp, they're just flying. So we put a lot of supports in place this year with our 1st grade, using our reading specialist and math interventionist in very creative ways. But then as you can see, in 2nd grade, the data really picks up. So we look at 1st grade kind of like a transition year, because then the data does pick up come 2nd grade. And then what we also saw was a need for writing support in 3rd and 4th grade. So we designed a creative schedule where at the end of the day, every day, 2:30 to 2:45, either the reading specialist or the learning support teacher pushing into 2 of the 6 classrooms on a daily basis. So in the 6-day cycle, the reading specialist is in classroom A 2 days out of the 6-day cycle, classroom B 2 days out of the 6-day cycle, and the learning support teacher as well, to help with specific writing intervention and enrichment to help us build their skills, which will then lead to an increase, hopefully, in their growth and achievement on PSSA testing. And so in essence, we're trending in a really positive direction. Our work with OGAP, the ongoing assessment project with math, has really proven to do some exceptional things with our data. The way that we're seeing students approach their work, we're trying to take that mindset and push it into our other content areas as well. So to examine where their errors are and then how we can change our instruction to meet their needs. And I think I set the record.
Yep.
Questions?
No, I'm just going to follow up. You can sit down. I'm going to follow up on something that you said because it's a pattern, and I want to reinforce it. What you're hearing a lot of the elementary folks talk about, and I would imagine the middle school would talk about it, and then when we get to the high school, same there. But is the writing support, and as they spend more time in education. And I get closer and closer to sunset, I feel more emboldened to tell you how I feel. And this is one of those times where we have a myopic focus on writing because we are observing less and less of that happening as compared to, say, when everybody in this room was in school. And a good indicator of that is really here in the community, and I've talked about this before, and I talk to teachers and interventionists all the time. I could stop and I'll have a conversation with a young kid, and I hear some of the vocabulary. And the educator in me would call it academic vocabulary. And I bet if I went to their home, I would hear their parent or parents talking to them using what we call academic college vocabulary or post-secondary vocabulary. And you're like, wow. And my kid was one of these. And then you ask them to respond to a prompt in writing. And you look at it and you're like, wait a minute. These things aren't aligned. Why did you use this word versus what you just told me? Well, I don't know how to spell that, right? And so it's really important for us to work with our kids to be able to tell us what they heard in their own words and to write what they heard in their own words. And as these digital natives take over and everything, the information, the content that they receive is online, I start to feel the less and less apt they are to be writing. And then there's something lost in there. And that's really important because if we're just taking a look at something like outcomes, 25% of these assessments that we talk about have to do with writing. So it's imperative that we do that. And in a lot of cases, we're trying to back map and make up over years because that's something that's gone by the wayside. And it's really easy I do it all the time, forget about it. You talk to a kid, I know that you've all done it. And you're like, wow, like how articulate are you? But can they put that in writing? So that's really important. So that's something that you're hearing from all of our elementary principals, and I'm assuming you're going to hear that next as for the middle school. After you, of course.
Good. Hi, everybody. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to share all the work that we're doing at Waverly Elementary School. You've heard most of it, so please, if you have questions, jump in. I'll share our results. As you can see, we use most of the same data. A lot of what I've been focusing on is working to build the capacity of our teachers as well as the capacity of our students. So we've done a lot of work in, well, this is my 4th year at Waverly, to really focus on the data and really focus on each student and to look at how to improve our instructional practices to support the students and their needs. And I'm very proud to say it really is starting to pay off. We're seeing a positive trend. In 3rd grade last year, we increased our proficiency by 8.8%, and in 4th grade, and 2.4% in our ELA program. And we continue on that path this year. Our midterm diagnostics are showing positive trends, as well as our benchmark testing in K through 4. You know, we continue daily to really focus on how to adjust our instruction and how to meet the needs of our students. Mrs. Karen, I'm very happy to hear you hear about it, because that is one of the things that we're trying to work on too, is conferencing with our students, because we would need to build that motivation in our students to do well and want to perform well. I'm sure Mrs. Snyder will agree, it's really hard to do that in middle school. So we really want to focus on that intrinsic motivation with our kids to do well and to perform well, and how to do that. And there's a lot of talk about the CDTs and all of these. And one thing we realized through all of this is really, like, kids need to understand what the questions they're asking them are. And that practice that Dr. Schaefer spoke about with CDTs is really helping us with that. And as we look at our writing this year, we're really looking at the writing rubric and helping kids to understand what do those numbers mean and what do these statements mean, so that they understand why they have a 2, why they have a 3, and really focus on educating both ourselves and our students as to how we can perform better. And our math data, I'm proud to say, we had very positive results. In 3rd grade, we grew by 9.4%, and in 4th grade, 17.5%. Our current diagnostics, we're on track to still perform, but we recognize we have work to continue to do, and we do that in our data meetings. And we really are focusing on building that culture of looking at data in communication with each other. We've tried to create a safe space to have really honest conversations. I sat in 3 hours of that today, and it was really productive, though. We walked away like, yeah, all right, this is gonna go. We've completely flipped some things we're going to do, especially in kindergarten, and recognizing that, you know, that we have some students that have some challenges, and we have some students that are really, really high. And that's really hard for a teacher to do in the classroom. So we're trying to build in some supports and provide additional teacher support, as well as build the capacity for our parents at home. So we're trying to send more things home and trying to help them understand why we do these things in classroom, and ask them to help us at home with that. Any questions? Thank you for letting me go last.
evening. We're going to totally switch gears to talk about the middle school now. So now we're talking about grades 5 through 8. First, you see up here is our ELA goal for the year. So our goal is focused on the PSSA, but it's drilled down a little bit more to specifically focus on the text-dependent analysis piece of PSSA. That is the written portion of the PSSA. When we looked at the data, so just originally looking at PSSA data, this is a continuation from last year. We had a similar goal. We only had 28% of our students across the board that were getting a 12 or higher. So they can score a 4, 8, a 12, or a 16. So we saw about 75% of our kids were getting half credit or less on this written portion of the PSSA. So last year we really focused in on this. We did move the needle a little bit last year. Our goal was to increase it by 3%, and we did do that, and so we're looking to continue to move the needle this year with the writing portion of it. So we've looked at PSSA data. We also are doing the CDT benchmark testing. And then the CDT does not include a written portion, so we have also put in a TDA benchmark that students have completed. So they did that in September. They just recently completed it, so there's not mid-year data on this slide for the TDA piece. And then they will do it again in the springtime when they take the third round of their CDT tests. We also, of course, look at classroom assessments. So the data that's up here is our PSSA data, so that's the percent of students by grade that scored a 12 or higher on last year's PSSA for TDA. And then our September TDA benchmark data, because our mid-year is currently being scored. Okay. One thing we noticed last year when we met with teachers to kind of look through this, and Dr. Schaefer kind of mentioned it, is that when kids go to complete this writing task, we really looked at what do they need to be able to do as readers, writers, and test takers. So there's kind of 3 pillars that we looked at across the board because they have to do all 3 things effectively and successfully in order to take all that information and put it onto paper. One change we made this year, because we did do TDA benchmark last year, but one change we made was that we're having students do that on their Chromebooks because, like we said, they will have to do that on their Chromebooks when they take the PSSA, and the skill of actually typing out their written responses as opposed to pen to paper is much different than what they're used to when they're in their classrooms and they're writing maybe an end of module task. We've had, so actions taken, we've had consistent grade level data meetings. We just had them today to review our mid-year data with our teachers. There is a focus explicitly on this writing instruction. TDA arguably is its own genre of writing, so it does need some attention. Our programs address pieces of writing, but there are pieces that we have had to address that aren't necessarily in Wit and Wisdom because you wouldn't find them in any program. We have this year implemented a consistent use of writing strategies. So what I mean by that is specifically a brainstorming tool for students to use that's consistent in grades 5 through 8. So when they're in 5th grade, they move to 6th grade. It's not a brand new, like, here's another graphic organizer to learn. Here's another way to learn how to plan your writing. We've made that consistent vertically, so it's easy for kids to move through the grades. And it's also something that they can do on their own. It's not a handout that they need. They can create it on their own. And they see that's part of what they do with their regular writing in their class as well. But we've just made it consistent vertically. We're having consistent professional learning communities with our ELA teachers. And then we did have a cohort of people that attended a professional development in November. And it was led through Collins Writing, which is a writing program. It's approach to writing, but it was focused, again, like I said, on this TDA piece. And so the teachers that attended that with Ms. Burrell, who's one of our assistant principals, and our reading specialist, the resources that they received there and some of the tips and tricks they have brought back, and that is them being implemented through our PLCs with our teachers. Okay, so then math. This is also a continuation, our goal here from the last couple years that I've been the principal at this building, looking again, like just to continue to increase the number of students who are proficient or advanced or PSSAs. We did Tom and I did a very deep data dive a couple years ago and noticed that as our kids move from 3rd through 8th grade, their proficiency on the math PSSA just continually drops. So we just had decided to very much focus on raising the bar with the percentage of students that are proficient or advanced on their math PSSAs. So we've looked at the PSSA data. Again, they do the CDT testing, and then of course we have our classroom assessments. The data that's presented up there is the percentage of students who are proficient or advanced on our PSSA. The last bullet point just gives you that combined 5 through 8, so that's what I look at when I look at the goal. And then our mid-year CDT data is up there as well, so you can see that we're further along than we were in the springtime of last year based on that CDT data. So some things with math that we done, same thing, consistent grade level meetings, data meetings, targeted interventions. Our specialists, I didn't mention this for the writing piece, but our specialists are pushing into classrooms in 7th and 8th grade to provide some supports, and then in 5th and 6th grade, they are doing some pull-out, like specific interventions with small groups of students. It's a little different with 5, 6 than it is for 7 and 8. We've had more consistent professional learning meetings with math teachers focused on formative assessment. So formative assessment is like taking the temperature of you just taught a content, you're assessing it in the moment, did they get it, did they master it, looking at student work, analyzing it, and then making some decisions around what are your next instructional moves. That's been the focus through the OGAP professional development that we've had this year, and so we're continuing that outside of that professional development. The focus with the professional development is to make the use of that formative assessment more systematic. So it's not like I'm just doing it because I'm getting professional development, but really building it into what the teachers are doing so it becomes part of their routine and it's systematic. That's all I have. Any questions?
No, you can sit, but I will elaborate on a couple things that
I'm
you
sitting or
said for
staying?
the board. You don't, yeah, you can, yeah, sit down.
Great.
Go crazy. Ms. Snyder talked about math professional learning and that focus, and I want to hit on that for a second here. We've spent a good deal of money on OGAP, and it's the ongoing assessment project. They're a grassroots organization based in Vermont, and they are very kind folks that just love math, but more importantly, they get something that I think a lot of people in education miss, including myself early on. And that is, I believe we learn through negative verification. If I'm ever successful at something, I never stop and think about that. I stop and think about times when I missed the mark and I screwed something up, or what, you learn through negative verification, and this is what OGAP's about. When Ms. Snyder talked about a formative assessment on time, our teachers are learning to look at the student's work through the lens of an error analysis. So you look at the student's work and they've made a mistake, and the question is, what type of mistake did they make? Is this similar to other mistakes? Is there a pattern there? Might this have to do with, some type of pattern recognition before or something in the base 10 system? And if they see that, then they can offer that lesson. So it's a very different perspective on it. And it really does pay dividends, and it really helps you as a teacher when you start to see the same, like, what types of mistakes are they making? Like, oh, they're getting these two concepts confused. We need to go back at that. And that's been really informative for our teachers. And it also makes you much better at your craft, because then you put that into your working memory. And then as you start to put your next lessons together, you're thinking about that. Like, hey, wait a minute. These kids were in 2nd grade when COVID hit. I bet they missed some of that. They're not so good with the fractions, or they're missing this or that. So I think that's really positive. And then the other thing I wanted to mention that we're hearing, and I can't hit this hard enough, is the text-dependent analysis, because it's kind of what we all do. I mean, it's just a fancy way of saying the kids are going to read a passage, and it may be something that's based in science. There may be tables and charts in there. They got to read that, and then they're going to have to respond to that in writing, and they won't get the highest score until they get to that point in critical thinking, reading, and writing, that they're actually analyzing it and evaluating it. This is something that everybody has to do in the workforce. And unfortunately, it's a skill that is diminishing, in part because, we've got some great tools with AI, and that's fantastic, but that doesn't mean that AI or ChatGPT should supplant some of these key skills that we are working to teach our kids, right? Because eventually when they get up into that workforce, they're going to have to take a look at the results and decide, is that accurate? Is what ChatGPT or any other source showed, is that accurate? Do I agree with that? And am I going to then put my name on this and send this out to my supervisor, right? So these are all really important things. So I'm just trying to ground some of this in real life applications and why we have this focus and what we were building on. Because while, yes, we have just spoken with the elementary principals in the middle school, and Leanne's going to come up next, you know, I'm looking at a K-16 model, right? Where are the kids after they leave us? When they come back, what are they saying? Did we provide them during this whole continuum of learning with everything that they needed? So I wanted to make sure I reinforce that.
Can I,
Sure.
just to add something almost silly, Mrs. Snyder brought up typing, and I can't believe I'm the one saying this because I was taught typing by a 95-year-old nun on an old typewriter. I know, and I'm not that old. It was a thing. But the kids don't really know how to type the way that our peer group knows how to type, and that is a disadvantage when you're taking a timed test where you have to write. And I think it goes back to, I'm not sure what the immediate solution is, or if we bring back the typewriters, I don't think that's a good idea, but there is that idea of this gap between where the technology is, what the students are using, and then what the school is using. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that when we're looking at these numbers, like, I've observed that, and it almost at a humorous level where I will help my child, very rarely, with something, and I'm literally pushing, I'm like, I'll type it. Why is it taking you so long? You know, and so they really don't have that skill set yet.
So they don't know what ASDF JKL semicolon means.
You know, it also, you think of the effort spent learning cursive writing. Oh, yeah, exactly. And where has that gone? And what is going to be the effect of AI on writing skills in general and voice recognition? You know, what's going to happen when that precocious kindergartner is using all these words and they can print it out because AI knows how to spell the word that they're talking about?
Could I just ask a question?
Sure.
So first, I just want to thank everybody that came today. That was excellent to hear. I'll be the first to admit, a
Still
lot
in
of
high
this
school,
is
Rod.
over my head. Right? I'm not an educator by background, so it's great to hear from you in terms of like what you're doing on an everyday basis to try and fix holes that you see, right? And I'm learning every time I listen to you present, so I just wanted to thank everybody. So the question that I would have is that this is all great. Like, we're clearly doing a fantastic job at intervening when we need to and trying to fix issues that we're seeing. How do we, as a board, get information on like how we're doing relative to, like, this is all like more in the weeds to me. Like, if you look at the absolute performance, is there a way for us, and we talked about this a little bit last year, we never really followed up on it too much, but like, is there a way for us to, and yeah, I don't want to make it hard to do that because I don't want to dig too deeply into it, but like when we as a board look at how we're doing relative to other school districts, how do we do that?
All right. So I'll say this, and then I'll bring Leanne up to do the high school. One of the things that I take a look at relative to what you ask, and this is just one metric, but I take a look at the PSSA and Keystone results, and I file it in a place in my head. But what's more important, it's important. And I like to see where we sit on a percentile basis. Like, how do we sit amongst our peers? Because sometimes the numbers fall, but yet we gain on a percentile basis. And that's actually what happened this year. Our math went up by 5%, outpacing the state. Our ELA dropped by 3%, but that was a number consistent with the state. However, where we sit. So in English language arts, we're at the 82nd percentile. So there's only 18% of the schools out there that were higher. And in mathematics is 86. Those are actually increases from the year before. But you pose a really good question, and I don't have a great answer other than there is a metric that I take a look at that I feel is more holistic. It doesn't provide the perfect answer, but it provides a much more clear picture, and it's a PA Future Ready Index. All you need to do is Google PA Future Ready Index, and it takes a look at everything from the assessment results to growth. So for instance, we didn't talk about growth, but yet if you go on the PA Future Ready Index, you'll see a lot more growth arrows for us. So they take a look at where the kids performed the year before as a group, and how did they perform the next year as a group, and did they demonstrate more than a year's worth of growth? And there's statistical jujitsu in there that I don't understand, but we had that growth. They also take a look at career readiness. So there are things that we do in the career landscape in our schools that we take a look at. I think it has much better utility at a high school as compared to a middle school just because of developmentally where we're at. So if I ask Leanne to go over the Future Ready Index, she would be able to provide you scores for kids in our auto class, in masonry. You know, you would see that and you're like, oh, okay, because they take certain assessments. You would also see AP scores on there. When we get the AP,
when we get the data file from College Board, they give us our percent against PA and our percent against global. And of the 22 exams we gave last year, only one of our exams either met or was just below. Every other exam far exceeded the percentage that passed in Pennsylvania and the percentage that passed on a global level, because it's an international exam. So like there are other metrics, but again, to compile them all, it's really clunky to look at it in comparison, but it's out there. I mean, you can.
I would, if you would grant me a Department of Quants, I could probably direct them to put together some crazy metric. But what I'm trying to do is tell you everything that's swimming around in this head. But to answer your question, you have to take a look at that holistic piece to it. And then, you know, over top of that, and, you know, I don't have any quantifiable information other than anecdotal here, is I take a look at all the things our kids are involved in. So in elementary, when I see the little kids in Common Express coming up here and, you know, and showing how they're like mechanically inclined and how they're taking a problem of practice and putting together some type of solution to the high school, when I see the amount of kids in athletics and extracurricular activities, and then I ask Leanne, give me the GPA. And the GPA of our athletes outperforms that of our non-athletes. And that's because I think that, look, you have to manage your time well. You know, if you're going to practice here, then you got to study here, and you got to perform there. And so I know I didn't answer your question, but I try to. Yeah. It's better than like a fortune cookie. Yeah.
You know, I think the problem of who is our peer set is a good one, though, because we've all seen, the newspaper used to have the school reports.
We
or
still get the
whatever,
U.S. News and World Report. Yeah, we still.
And of course, Abington's always been an outlier in that we've always done well. We have a great combination of parents and students and wonderful teachers and so on. But I think the problem there is you can become complacent so quickly, saying, well, our numbers are good. And to your point, Rod, I think that the question is, what is the proper peer group that we should shoot at? And I tell you, I'm amazed at all of you coming up here and talking about, here are the results, and some good, some bad, but I think every one of them has basically said, this isn't good enough. We have to move on.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you have to do.
And I think like a lot of us are competitive by nature, so when US News and World Report like puts that out, I look, of course, the first is where are we? But then I look at what did everybody else score and what do they have that we don't? And then I think that is just the nature of like comparison, right? And sometimes comparison it kills your joy, but I think it's important for you to always know where you're at relative to your peer group and what you're up against and what are the small changes you can make to have a bigger impact on them too. So, can I go?
Yep.
All right, so I want to apologize because I typically don't come up and read anything, but when he told us we were presenting in December, he said we had 90 seconds.
What
And then
pronoun?
today he said we have 2 to 3 minutes.
Am I a pronoun?
So, I mean, there's people here, there's people here that said they had 90 seconds. We were only gonna have 90 seconds. They heard you say it, so it's true. So,
90 seconds.
Yeah, I did.
90 seconds. So
I did.
I did prepare some statements because obviously, back to the competitive nature of who I am.
But that was hyperbole.
But then when
to
he
a
said
sense.
I had 2 to 3 minutes, I did add some stuff, so, all right. So I want to connect our 3 priorities. Ours at the high school will look different than elementary and even the middle. It's a little bit more pointed, like we're not only looking at, the Keystone test, like ELA or math. I'll go through the goals. So our Keystone data this year showed a significant decline from 24 to 25, with proficiency and advanced scores dropping by roughly 10 percentage points. Our CDT results currently are mirroring the concern, but the issue with the CDT is it changes, right? So like they take it in the fall, and it keeps giving them harder questions as they learn the skill, and then the same thing in the middle. So we're still seeing, we're kind of holding steady, but we are very hopeful. When I move through the data, you'll see some other data points that are pointing that we're moving in the right direction. Historically also, we have algebra failure rates were kind of a major risk that is related to this goal. You could see, if you look at the middle column, bullet point 4, last year at the end of first quarter, we had 11 students that failed Algebra 1. This year we only have 1 student. So I think that speaks, even though it's live data, right? It's not really telling a full story yet, but I think it's important to look at the small growth that we are getting. So our CDT did drop in percentage for proficiency and for proficient and advanced, but if you look in the 3rd column at the 2nd bullet, you see that our student average on the CDT grew. So even though your percentage of proficient and advanced declined, students are scoring higher now on the test. So it is, I think, going to trend in the right direction. Another great bullet point that I think is so important, we've had 74 school days. One of the things that we've added to the high school to kind of target interventions, our class periods are only 43 minutes, so it's difficult for us to have, small group pull-out instruction when you only have class for 43 minutes. So we kind of worked around that and added a learning lab at the high school, and that's staffed by an ELA, I'll use the words, and then a math teacher every period. So there's 2 faculty members available in the library every period for when a student has their study hall, they can go have another touch point. If they feel they need it, they could self-report themselves there during their study hall or their lunch. Also, they can be referred. So if you're not meeting with success in your classroom, the teachers are now making referrals, like instead of sitting in your study hall, we give kids Chromebooks, so when they go to study hall, they could be playing games on their Chromebook that whole entire time. So instead of, when we see kids not meeting with success, we're asking the students to kind of look at how the student is performing in the classroom, what the data is showing, just inferentially, like what are we looking at, and then if they think they need more intervention than what the teacher's able to provide in that 43 minutes, we're assigning them to the library for their study hall. So that is one way that we're attacking that first goal. Michelle, you could go to the 2nd slide. The 2nd goal was really focusing on the interventions that we're able to provide through the Learning Lab. Dr. Schaefer asked for failure data, so I threw it in there, and it it made the font really small. So I hope he shares these slides with you so that you could read it and understand it a little bit better. But we really are trying to strengthen our intervention system, and we find that students are reporting to the Learning Lab, for social studies, for science, just getting that extra help, like, hey, can you read this assignment for me, or this essay, I have to submit this, so they're getting, and we also have our peer tutors assigned there, so they're also getting volunteer hours on their study hall. So we created entry and exit criteria for our teachers to refer, and then how a student works their way back up. We're sharing bi-weekly data. We're sharing it actually weekly, but the meetings that we're having with guidance is happening bi-weekly. So we meet with guidance every week, but every other week we're really looking at the data and finding out what they're doing with the student and the family. And we've had 90 students hard referred, like the teacher's like, no, you need extra help in there. So 90 students have been referred. We've adjusted 70 schedules, which means like beyond the intervention that they were getting, we've had to make some schedule adjustments, and they are there. And about 24 have successfully been able to return to their independent study hall because they've been sustaining passing grades, and we've been tracking their success independently. So right now, the system, we're only about halfway through the year, so the system is functioning as we've designed it. We're positioned, I think, for strong success, and hopefully, by the end of the year, we'll be able to update you on if this pivot, it's brand new this year, if this safety net that we created is, working for our students and meeting the needs of our teachers too. And then our last goal, a lot of you have teenagers, you know that they can be surly and, they don't want to admit that they enjoy coming to school, but maybe that is their reality. So we really tried to make sure that they are feeling supported in our school and build off the end of the year data that was shared through the climate survey. I have to give credit to our PBS team and our PBS ambassadors. They're really doing such a remarkable job. The students are really driving that bus. We also added advisory and activity periods. We find that not only are students very busy after school for club meetings, parents are very busy after school to get kids at off times, and so students weren't staying after school to attend any club meetings. So we found a way to just borrow a little bit of time once a month, and I'd say there's been about 30 plus club meetings monthly. We did have to cancel December, but the initiatives that are coming out of there and putting students together with like-minded peers that have common interests. We've had a couple new clubs pop up. We're really excited about that, and we hope that that generates a sense of belonging. Kids can't learn in an environment where they don't feel safe, so while it feels like a small goal and it's just a climate goal, it really adds tremendous value inside the classroom when they have peers, maybe, when the teacher puts them in cooperative learning groups, like, oh, I'm in that club with that person, you're just meeting different people. So in summary, the data that we looked at, obviously there's challenges everywhere, but we're hoping that, our interventions and the small pivots that we've made, they're intentional, they're deliberate, we're being responsive, I've heard check the temperature like 100 times now, so we're checking the temperature too. But then I hope that it could stabilize and we just keep building capacity in all of our people and our students, and it's just a great place to be. Yes, ma'am.
I'll compliment you on the that last slide because I have a kid who we all know it's kind of like going to the gym in January, right? Like there's obstacles that we all have, like gym intimidation or whatever hurdles we have, and so removing the hurdle of staying after, finding people, that extra effort of reaching out and discovering the clubs you want to join, it made a huge difference, and it did correlate with better performance in school, grade-wise. So it's actually great, and I was unaware. So they were listing the things my kid is involved in, and I thought he was lying. I was like, I've never picked you up from school for these clubs. And he's like, no, I'm part of all of them. And then I was dropping off to volunteer at the fire hall for a Santa breakfast. I was like, oh, this is fantastic. So
That's awesome.
kudos to
Thank
you all.
Thank you for that anecdotal. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't think my microphone's working.
You want to use mine?
That's God telling you.
So for the learning labs that you were talking about.
Yes.
That is brand new this year as a result of not having universal ninth mod?
Yes, yes, and yes. So we found that students and parents maybe were finding every reason to like dismiss their child from ninth mod study hall. So I don't know if you've ever come to our campus in previous years around 2:30. It was a scene. It was cars everywhere. Everybody was getting out. And, schools can't hold kids hostage. So when the parent says, I'm here to pick my kid up, you're dismissing the kid. And it's just, what it was. And so then you're missing out on time to take a test if you missed one, time to work with your teacher, time to be with peers, all of those things. And so to make it more functional and not just a digital playground, which is what the ones that were staying for ninth mod, by the end of the day, your battery is spent. So some of them were just checking out and playing or just watching whatever they can get on their Chromebook at the end of the day. So when we shifted away from having a universal ninth mod study hall, I felt, and the admin team at the high school felt, it was very important to make it valuable and worthwhile for the student so that they could actually learn how to lock in, as they say. Like, you have this time, use it, here's what it's for. And, some of them are using it to manage their time better. Like, I have my study hall third period. I can not stay up until 1 a.m. doing that homework because I could just get it done before I go to my seventh period class. So they're figuring out ways. Or I have this thing tonight. I'm going to do my morning homework in my study hall before my afternoon homework gets piled onto me. But yes, that's why Learning Lab was created, so that they still felt that they had access to people to support their learning. You're welcome.
I think just not specific to high school, so I don't want to hold her hostage, but to echo what Rod had said before, I think it would be useful to us to see the trends over time, whether that's percentile or whatever it is. I would also like to see if there's a way we can like consolidated the 4 elementary schools next to each other. Like, I know that we presented them back to back, but if we could kind of see, because one of the things that stood out to me is there's different performance. We seem to have the same curriculum, same concept, same investment, right? The trends that I noticed, just high level, didn't seem to match any socioeconomic trend I would expect or anything within our community. So I'm curious to see what can we be more prescriptive in intervening in at that grade level as well.
That was my note too. We say like, PSSA scores went up, down, like, what is that really measuring when you're looking at kids that took the test a year ago, right? Like, you're not comparing them, you're just comparing your growth differently. So I also would like to see, when we're looking at the cohorts, how, third graders perform, not compared to this year's third graders, but to see those trends kind of side by side. So I think that would be helpful for us to see, like even year after year, just to see how they are, and I think, we always say like you can't use COVID as an excuse, but I think it certainly is an explanation. So I think it would be interesting to see when you look at those group of kids that were supposed to getting those, foundational skills for ELA, for reading, how they're performing compared to other grades.
And I do think that the large things, so we put COVID as the big thing that we often reference, but it's going to be, AI, it's going to be whatever else in the future. Those things impact society as a whole. So if we could reference them against the larger populations, we would know if we're performing and catching these things as well as other schools at least.
Yeah, those are all valid points, and I'll take a look. I know we do have some reporting on that from really not even 30,000 feet above. One thing that wasn't necessarily framed this way, but I'm going to frame it this way, that we're always working on is internal consistency. Because I'm not going to tell you that every student in every grade, every teacher that they have receives the same thing, for lack of a better term. And I don't mean that in a bad way. But if I just frame it like, how do we respond to kids when they're meeting the expectation? In other words, how do we work with them now? And then how do we work with kids that are not meeting that expectation? And And we really have to think long and hard about that. Like, how do we respond to kids when they aren't doing well? Which is why Leanne said that I asked for the failure data every day and twice on Sunday. Because if you know anything about risk factors and protective factors, once you get so many risk factors, it doesn't matter. So we need to be taking a look at what are some of these metrics that are indicative of when we start to fall back. And then how do we intervene? What does that look like? What does that sound like? Do we have, math interventionists, ELA interventionists, counselors, you name it, speech. So those are all important things. So when we talk about professional learning and we talk about OGAP, that's absolutely imperative that we keep on sharpening the knife, because regardless of where you live or what school you go to or what grade you're there, you should know that when you're meeting it, this is what's going to happen. We're going to enhance your experience. When you're not meeting it, this is what we're going to do to get you back on track. Because if it keeps on going, then it becomes really difficult to catch up, right? And as Gretchen said, it was not an excuse but an explanation. We're already a little bit behind because this is something that takes 13 years to get through the system. So.
Thank you all. Very, very good reports. We appreciate your candor and ideas for the future. Okay. Dr. Schaefer?
All right.
Something else for superintendent's report?
0.
Okay, let's move to the action discussion item.
All right. I'd ask that the board approve the personnel report.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson? Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe, welcome.
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson? And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
9-0.
Mr. Acker, I'd ask the board consider a motion to approve the request to establish a student activity account, the Unified Club at the high school.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson? And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
9-0.
Okay, before I do this next action item, I want to make sure that I explain this. This next action item is about the Act 1 index. The board is not voting on like a tax increase or it's not voting on that today. All we are voting on is to say that the school board will not exceed the Act 1 index, which is the maximum that we could raise taxes, and that is 4.1%. We are mandated by the Department of Education to do this. And the fact of the matter is, we had to do this in January every year because every school district, for the most part, would have the opportunity to take some exceptions if they qualified to raise their Act 1 index number.
Excuse me, are you on mute? I can't hear.
Oh, sorry about that, Phil. Yeah, sorry, I was getting some feedback, I hit mute. Now that the state provides adequacy funding for schools, they have removed our ability to take exceptions. So that's just off the table. So we'll continue to do this even though there's no real purpose in that or utility in that anymore, unless you went to a referendum. So at this time, I'd ask the board to consider a motion to approve the Abington Heights Act 1 Resolution Index.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdallah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Hildebrand.
Yes.
Mrs. Garum.
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe,
Yes.
Mr. Moran.
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
and Mr. Acker.
Yes.
9-0.
Mr. Record, ask the board consider a motion to approve the affiliation agreement between Marywood University and the Abington Heights School District to provide school-based practicum education experiences for students in the school psychology program.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdallah.
Yes.
Mr. Azar.
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson.
Yes.
Mrs. Hildebrand. Mrs. Garum.
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe,
Yes.
Mr. Moran.
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
and Mr. Acker.
Yes.
9-0.
Before I read this next one, just for anybody out there, this is a motion to approve a school business consultants agreement. This is not supplemental. We had a retirement, and we're not replacing that position. We are going to have the school business consultants provide someone to do that work. So, at a cost savings for the district. So, at this time, I'd ask the board to consider a motion to approve the School Business Consultants LLC Management Service Agreement to perform day-to-day operations for the district office.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdallah.
Yes.
Mr. Azar.
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson.
Yes.
Mrs. Hildebrand. Mrs. Garum.
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe,
Yes.
Mr. Moran.
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
and Mr. Acker.
Yes.
9-0.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Schaefer. The next part of our agenda is the listing of the use of facilities, which is listed online. And as usual, it's extensive. Do we have any other unfinished business for the board tonight? Is there any new business? Can I ask for a motion to adjourn,
So
please?
moved.
Thank you all. We're adjourned. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Hey, thanks, Phil.